Motive. 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 So, let's talk about the word motive. As a language teacher, I'd be happy to explain it in detail. The part of speech for motive is noun, and it refers to the reason why someone does something or why an event happens. In common usage, you might say that someone's motive for buying a car was because they wanted to reduce their carbon footprint, or that the motive behind a crime was to steal money. What's interesting about this word is that it can also be used in a more abstract sense, referring to one's underlying desires, goals, or motivations. For example, her motive in life was to become an artist. One special note I'd like to make is that the plural form of motive is actually just motives, even though it ends with a different sound than the singular form. When discussing the suspect's suspicious behavior at the crime scene, Detective James mentioned that she was investigating their motive for breaking into the neighbor's house. In this formal usage, the detective is using motive to refer to the underlying reason or cause for a specific action, which in this case might be theft or vandalism. On the other hand, when chatting with friends at a coffee shop, Emily explained that she was feeling unenthusiastic about attending her friend's party because she wasn't sure what his motive was for inviting her. Was it genuine interest or just a show off? Here, motive is used in a casual conversation to refer to the underlying reason or intention behind someone's actions, which can sometimes be ambiguous or unclear. In contrast, during an academic conference presentation, Dr. Patel discussed the researchers' motive for studying the effects of climate change on local ecosystems. She highlighted that their primary goal was not just to gather data but also to explore how these changes might impact human societies and the environment as a whole, demonstrating a more formal and objective usage of motive in a business or academic context. So you want to know about motive? Okay, let me explain. A motive is basically what drives people to do something, their reason for acting in a certain way. It's like, why did they do that? What was behind their action? For example, someone might go to the gym because they want to be healthier. That's their motive. The main characteristic of a motive is that it's usually not immediately visible, but you can figure it out by thinking about why people behave in certain ways. Some similar concepts or synonyms for motive are reasons, explanations, and purposes. These all relate to what makes someone do something. In everyday life, understanding motives helps us make sense of others' actions and decisions, which is really important for building relationships and making informed choices. Neutral. 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 So, when we talk about the word neutral, it's an adjective that can be quite versatile in our everyday conversations. The part of speech is key here. Neutral is an adjective, which means it modifies or describes a noun or pronoun. In common usage, people use neutral to describe something that hasn't taken sides, like a neutral observer in a conflict who isn't supporting one side over the other. It can also mean not having strong feelings about something. So someone might say they're feeling neutral about a particular topic. What's interesting is that neutral can sometimes be used in a more nuanced way to imply a sense of indifference or lack of enthusiasm. For example, I'm feeling really neutral about this new movie could suggest that it didn't impress you one way or the other. It's worth noting that in some contexts, like in chemistry or physics, neutral might have a very different meaning altogether. In a formal context, you might say the newly appointed judge was praised for maintaining a neutral stance in her first high-profile case. showing that she could remain impartial despite intense media scrutiny. This example demonstrates how the word neutral can be used to convey a sense of objectivity or lack of bias. In a casual conversation, someone might remark, "I'm trying to stay neutral on social media during this heated debate, so I don't have to deal with all the drama and insults." Here, the usage conveys a desire to avoid taking sides or engaging in arguments. In a business or academic context, you might write, "The research team made a concerted effort to maintain a neutral tone in their report," avoiding any language that could be perceived as promoting a particular agenda or product. This example highlights how the word neutral can be used to convey a sense of impartiality and absence of persuasion. So, you want to learn about this concept that means being impartial and not taking sides? Well, basically, when we say something is neutral, we mean it doesn't have any bias or prejudice towards a particular person, group, or idea. It's like having a pair of glasses that shows everything clearly, without distorting the view. The main characteristics of neutrality are being fair, objective, and impartial, not taking sides or showing favoritism to anyone. This concept is often associated with things like a judge in a court case who has to make a decision based on facts alone, or a news reporter who reports on events without taking a personal stance. It's also similar to the idea of being impartial, nonpartisan, and unbiased, all of which mean essentially the same thing. Not showing preference for one side over another. When something is neutral, it provides an accurate view of things as they are, without any added spin or commentary. Nevertheless. 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 Let's talk about the word nevertheless. So, nevertheless is an adverb, which means it describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, and indicates that something happens or exists despite what was previously mentioned. In common usage, you'll often see nevertheless used to contrast or show a connection between two ideas. For example, I didn't feel like going to the party. Nevertheless, I ended up having a great time. Here, it's used to show that even though you initially felt reluctant, something positive happened in spite of that feeling. A special note about its usage is that nevertheless can be replaced by other words or phrases, such as still, yet, or in spite of that. But its unique nuance and connotation make it a useful addition to your vocabulary. It implies a slightly more formal or polished tone than some of those alternatives. In this formal letter, I'd like to express my gratitude for the invitation to speak at your conference. Nevertheless, I regret to inform you that I won't be able to attend as previously scheduled. This is because a last-minute work commitment has arisen and I must prioritize it. Now, let me tell you about my weekend plans. I was really looking forward to going hiking on Saturday, but the weather forecast looked gloomy, so I decided not to go. Nevertheless, my friend convinced me to join him for a spontaneous game night instead, which ended up being way more fun. In our company's latest quarterly report, we've seen some impressive sales figures from our new product line. Nevertheless, we still need to address the issue of declining customer satisfaction ratings in order to meet our projected revenue targets. So, you want to know about nevertheless? Well, in simple terms, nevertheless is a word that connects two ideas together, even if they seem opposite or contrasting. It's like saying, "Yes, I understand your point, but here's another thing to consider." The main characteristic of nevertheless is that it shows that one idea doesn't stop the other from being true. They can coexist. For example, I was tired, Nevertheless, I went for a walk. Meaning you were exhausted, but you still went walking. This concept is similar to however, but, or despite, which all mean that something else happens despite another fact. When using nevertheless, it's like providing an extra layer of information to add more context or nuance. It helps the listener understand the complexity of a situation.